Just about ready to start, so we're going to make a start now. Welcome to this webinar around personal resilience. This is part of a series of webinars really that illustrate our ropes process. So there have been 5 webinars in the series. At the moment we're on number 4, which is energy and resilience, but we've also covered off regulation, optimism, purpose, and the last one to come will be stamina. And this is part of an information series to help you get to grips with resilience and give you some free content to really get some tools and techniques to give you an idea of what resilience is all about. You can go to our sites qedod.com or our new sister site personalresilience.com, where you can get all sorts of free and paid for resources, and sign up and join our podcast series, Resilience Unraveled, where we have lots of interesting speakers who talk about their life, their approach to resilience from all sorts of areas, from the performing arts, from sport, and all sorts of different types of sports as well, and business people and psychologists. So you get a real rounded view of what resilience is and how it can actually help your performance. So let's make a start. You can join in the live chat room below, and I'll be on there as well, so you can discuss with me any thoughts, comments, or ask any questions. So let's make a start. And the plan for today, as always, is a little bit about us and recap, a deeper look at energy, any questions and answers that we may want to deal with, and next steps. The question and answers will be handled on the blog roll. So there you go. So about us, fundamentally resilience is often seen as being something that's linked to health and well-being, and whilst we obviously are in that world, our focus is pretty particularly about performance. Now in an organisational context that's about performance, but in a life context that's just maybe about your well-being or your happiness, or you having better and more productive relationships. So whatever success means to you is what we're about, and we're very practical, and we have a bunch of toolkits. So we sort of stay out of the sort of woo and the fluffiness, and concentrate on techniques to help yourself really. And we support those materials by online courses, online coaching, and face-to-face training, as well as online trainings. So there's all sorts of ways to communicate with us and join in and build your resilience. And to remind you, resilience, as we define it, is about bouncing back, of course, but also about coping during times when they're tough. You know, whether there's stress and pressure, or whether there's chaos and confusion, or you're depressed, or you're just having a rough time. It's about making sure that you still perform, how you have the resources to be able to do that. And it's also about understanding, before that takes place, the gear change that's involved, making sure that you don't slip into needless pressure and stress when none may be required. And then, like a bank account, I suppose, building the capacity is the initial investment. And it is funny that when people are feeling fine and great and life's wonderful, we often don't build our resilience, build our capability to have resilience when things might go wrong. And really, the greater the capacity you have, the more you see obstacles as positive events. And so, you can really get to grips building your mental toughness, emotional capability, and your physiological energy, if you're concentrating on it all the time, not just when things are getting tough. So energy is quite straightforward. I mean, if you're energetic, if you have energy, if you have the ability to fund your life, you will have all these things. And energy is interesting because energy feeds into our whole approach here. So if you think about physiology, emotion, and cognition, which is all about your potential, in particular, energy funds your ability to have greater mental fluidity, greater bodily awareness, and the ability to manage and control your emotions. If you don't have the amount of energy, the amount of raw material, actually your resilience suffers on a day-to-day basis. We all know, or perhaps all having a concept that a poor night's sleep will actually make you feel, or actually produce sensations in your body of real tiredness the next day, muzziness in your head, the need just to sort of chill out and hang loose and not tackle anything large the next day. And I remember certainly when we had our first child, not sleeping for 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just terrible, the idea of and just terrible, that idea of operating without sleep. I was on a course recently, there was a new father, and he just told me all he wanted to do was sleep. Sadly, it was the wrong course to be doing that. But anyway, it's really important that you are able to balance your physiological needs, your bodily needs, to help fund the other areas of our lives. So this tool looks at these 5 areas. You can see regulation, optimism, purpose, energy, and stamina. And those ropes help you stitch together the tools and techniques you need to build your resilience and your competence. We've talked about this much more in other webinars, so I shall scoot on. So energy, now literally the resources are the fuel to fund your body, mind, and emotional needs. And what's interesting here is a fantastic feedback loop, because the better you look at one area, the better the other responds. So if you have emotional control, it will consume less energy. The more, if you have lack of emotional control, you need more energy to help you deal with that. Makes sense. And energy is really all about building these 3 areas, mind, body, and emotions, to help you achieve what you need to achieve on a daily basis. Better relationships with yourself, knowing yourself better, and dealing with other people and the situations that life throws at us, because life has a habit of doing that, doesn't it? And we're going to look at 3 or 4 particular areas, these ones here. And typically renewal is something that we need to think about, and you notice stomach as well as brain and heart. Nutrition, let's get into first, shall we? So, first of all, let's just remember this, self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of those things that you really need to be good at in terms of energy, because you need to be able to recognize the inner voice inside your head. Those thoughts are the spoken words inside of your head which drive your feelings of lack of confidence and self-criticism, because that actually takes away your energy. You need to know how you feel on a day-to-day basis. You need to be aware of what's got in your body. When do you think an emotion might be running? When do you think actually that once an emotion starts to run, it might hijack the responses and words you say next? So having enough energy in your body funds your ability to deal with these things. And actually, if you're feeling yourself to be a little less in control on a day-to-day basis, it may well be that energy is the problem. You don't have enough resources in your body to be able to really make work what you need to do. So energy is not just the ability to run up and down the stairs really fast. It's not just that. It's the ability to manage yourself. And self-awareness is that first thought. And it's also, in terms of self-awareness, critical to understand our body and the body habits that we have. To be aware, for example, when you might fancy something naughty, something, say, a chocolate biscuit or something along those lines, the habits you built over the course of time. Knowing if you're an emotional person, when you emotionally eat, you need to be ready for that and have the energy you need to, before that habit starts to work, in order to help you to get to grips with that thing. So self-awareness is there for a reason. Self-awareness is there to look after yourself and to help you manage yourself more effectively. Like that dancing cat. Don't see those very often. So let's look at nutrition. And by nutrition, let's start thinking really about the whole regime of food. And I'm not here to moralize about diets, but nutrition is literally that ability to make sure you have the right amount of macro and micronutrients in your body to give you the energy, the fundamental energy you need. And the macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats are important for our diets in the right sort of balance. Now, there's a lot of evidence talking about the 5-2 diet, the Atkins diet, the Cambridge diet, there's this diet, that diet. I'm not here to talk about any of those, but there is significant evidence backing up now 2 things. One, which is the idea of fasting, and that the idea that fasting does put your body under a degree of stress, literal stress, where the body stops growing and starts feeding off itself, so it begins to renew and repair by using energy to do that for itself. There's also a theory that fasting helps people who the problem is not what they're eating, but how much they're eating, and when they're eating it as well, of course. So this idea that over the course of time we eat a certain number of calories, or consume a number of calories relevant to what we're using up, allows you to plan and think more carefully about how life may be going. It also helps with the way proteins are used in your bodies as well. So I've certainly used the 5-2 with good success, and it's been quite good. The major benefit I've found with the 5-2 is how sharp you feel when you're on it. And this is often the thing that starts to make you wonder about food. And a lot of our podcast people talk about this idea that you really notice when you're eating badly because you sort of feel more fuzzy in your head. And a couple of our elite sports people notice that, who are on very strict dietary regimes. They say actually when we start to eat badly, you really notice it, and actually they feel better when they go back on their normal way. Now, obviously, we need a good spread of vitamins, and the jury's out here. My job's not here to sort of propagate vitamins, but one of the good things at this time of the year to be concentrating on is vitamin D. And I know a lot of doctors sort of recommend this idea of a vitamin D supplement, partly because it turns into serotonin and actually makes you just feel a little bit better. But obviously, vitamin D is normally best getting it from the sun and making sure that you balance that need for vitamin D with the need not to overexpose your skin and get burned. So, part of our nutritional thinking is, do I have the right spread of macronutrients in my body? Do I have too many fats? And I know there's an argument between good and bad fats, but there's tons of information out there that allows you to get to grips with this. In fact, we have a particular resilience guide around nutrition on our website. So if you want to go and have a look at that, you can. It's written by Rachel Course, who's a real nutrition expert. Probiotics are something that's really handy. They really do help the bacteria in your stomach. And there's a couple of things about probiotics which are really interesting. One, which is that they're very easily killed by stress, apparently. The bacteria in the stomach is knocked off course by stress. And if you think about when we go on holiday, last 2 weeks before we go, we're running around like mad things, go on holidays, relax. And all those helpful bacteria in the stomach have all been killed off. And of course, we're immediately prone to anything that comes towards it. Different food, different environment, different viruses. And often in aeroplanes are great places to pick up the latest and most fashionable disease. Maybe disease is a bit strong, but you know where I'm coming from. The other thing I didn't know about probiotics is that and bacteria in the stomach, if you use probiotics, they're very susceptible to heat. And what I was doing was swigging down a pot of Yakult, or the brands apply, and then drinking a cup of coffee afterwards. And effectively what I was doing was counteracting the effect of the probiotic on the sort of biology of the stomach. And apparently it's best to finish off with the probiotics. I didn't know that. I thought it was quite useful. In terms of nutrition, oxygen is quite handy. Yeah, we all know that. But how we breathe is really important. We know that the brain function is helped by oxygen. And later we'll talk a little bit about mindfulness and meditation and how we breathe a little bit more effectively, because it really is important to fund our bodies. Obviously, there's a big debate around hydration. I think you'll hear one of our podcast guests saying that they drink more than 4 litres of water a day. But that's because they are an elite athlete. And the guidance, I think, is around 2.5 litres of water a day. It is possible to drink too much. And you have to be sanguine about whether you count teas or coffees in that. And there's one school of thought that says you should, and another that says you shouldn't. As someone that drinks a lot of tea and coffee, I obviously add in. But you need to take proper advice on that. But hydration, we know, is important. And of course, the enemy of most of what we're talking about here in terms of resilience are sugars and drugs. And sugars give us artificial highs, and they fund our feelings of well-being, but in a way that creates an addiction. And we also know that prescription drugs and other forms of foodie drugs also have a similar effect. They affect us when we're taking drugs. There are side effects to drugs, which means we can use our a diet to help us when we're in that sort of state. So I take a particular drug every single day. It's a prescribed drug. And as a result of that, I just need to watch things in certain areas. That doesn't mean I'm as thin as a rake, because my colleagues at this moment will be choking on their coffee. Know that I'm not. But it does mean I'm actually pretty healthy and making sure I'm looking after some of the fundamentals in terms of my nutrition. It's all going around again. Let's have a look at sleep. We talked about sleep earlier. You have to think about sleep being one of the most important things we do to renew and to regenerate. It's the point where the brain actually stops working in its normal method. A guy called David Eagleman had a television series running on BBC4. If you get the chance to see it, it might just blow your head apart in terms of how you think about the brain. And it actually characterises what happens to the brain rhythms when we sleep. They go from having these massive, complicated neurotransmitter sequences to virtually none. And it is quite interesting what happens during sleep in terms of our ability to shut the machine down. And the greater we can stop something working, the more it can rejuvenate and repair. It's a bit like a computer. It it resets when it reboots, and sleep is all rebooting. So simple techniques to help is breathing, making sure you do some deep, some nice calm breathing before you go to sleep. If you do meditation, do a bit before you go to bed. It really helps you, or when you're in bed. One of the classic things I notice with people, and when they talk to me about their sleep patterns, is they don't have a routine. So this idea of getting ready for bed. I know when I was a kid, my parents used to send me up to bed to get ready. And it is interesting now, when I was finding difficulty sleeping, I would be going to bed, getting washed in a really, really, really light, some of those waking up in a really light bathroom, and then jumping straight into bed, and then jumping around, thinking, well, I can't get to sleep now. Well, it's no surprise, really. So this idea of settling down. If you like reading, then read in bed, but of course avoid any sort of blue light. So avoid the iPads, avoid popping things, because that's actually stimulating your visual cortexes. Listen to that inner voice of yours, the one that's going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If you're doing oh my godding because of what you've got to do tomorrow, you need to write stuff down so you give the brain the chance to know that you've remembered it. And I read something quite recently, actually, this idea of temperature, that we normally sleep in bedrooms that are too hot. And I'm one of those people that when I go to sleep, I turn into some sort of nuclear furnace, and I sort of chuck all the covers off and such like. And it's usually because I like a dark room. I've got all the doors and windows shut tight, and the blackout blinds up and such like. Yeah, weird, eh? But what happens is it gets too hot. I mean, part of that is obviously because of lack of oxygen in the sort of environment, but it is interesting to think about that room temperature. And obviously, if you sleep with dogs and cats, which is not a great idea ever, or you have children in the bed, I mean, they do not raise the temperature as well, both metaphorically and physically. And actually, this blue light thing is the machines thing. If you want to wake up a bit more slowly in the morning, get one of those alarm clocks that wake you up nicely. Blue light is the enemy of good sleep. So don't get up in the middle of the night and check your phone. If you need to look at the time, the last thing to look at is your phone. And if you do want to, if that's your only choice, make sure you don't look directly into the phone. Sleep is fab. And how much sleep is enough is something that you need to determine for yourself. It's driven around your circadian rhythms, but it's also driven around an honest acceptance of what you really need. I was chatting to someone recently who told me they didn't really need much sleep, but how they loved to sleep in till 11 o'clock at the weekends in the morning. And I was like, well, that's just a sign that you're not getting enough sleep during the week. If you're getting up at 5:30, but you need to be sleeping till 11:30 Saturday and Sunday, that's a sign of sleep deprivation. So we need to be honest with ourselves about our reasons for sleep. And yes, exercise, there you go. Oh, I'm not a fan of exercise. I don't like the gym, but I recognize cardio resistance training is great. A lot of exercise just down to how much time you spend on it. For me, it should be, if you're going to do exercise, you should have something that develops something over the course of time. So I decided to go and do some exercise, but decided to learn to play tennis because actually I was learning a skill, so I was getting development, but actually getting sort of exercise at the same time, running around like a mad thing. Clearly I had to stop by buying all the kit. Suddenly when I learned scuba diving, which means now I have a lot of tennis and scuba diving kit in the house and don't use that either. But, for me, if you're going to do exercise, it's the variety that matters, not whether you do one thing to sort of to the nth degree. But that's my approach, and I know that in terms of resilience, that's good, because it means if you can't go to the gym that day, you're still getting good exercise that counts. They do say, isn't it, that every single day you should do some exercise that gets you out of puff, whether that's a short walk or whatever it might be, just something every single day, and that's good. There was a fascinating program on telly about 6 months ago, talking about the different benefits of different types of exercise, and they compared a 1.5 hour gym session with two people doing housework for 2.5 hours. I mean, given obviously, and I admit the fact that the housework thing was longer, but actually more calories were consumed during housework. The lifting, the scrubbing, the vacuuming, the bending, the standing, the running up and down stairs, the going backwards and forwards, all the hand movements, the stretching. And so, there you go. For me, if I want to do some exercise and the house is a mess, then I'd rather do that bit of housework than go to the gym. It always struck me odd with my colleagues, and that you get in the car, drive to a gym to get on the bike. But call me old-fashioned. Now, renewal is interesting. Renewal is interesting. It's like sleep. It's about how do you renew the system? How do you get the energy back that you might have lost? And one of the classic things to talk about is meditation. Often people use the word mindfulness, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not bent out of shape about either word. What matters here is that the body of evidence is so great now that this stuff works. From Martin Seligman's work with the US military right through to current day evidence through priests and nuns and such like, and longevity and mental fluidity and the ability to have mental flexibility. I got there in the end. Clearly I'm lacking that this morning. Meditation is absolutely key. And mindfulness is more about being in the moment and being in the now. Meditation is more about just stopping and spending some time not being anywhere other than in your head. It's about pushing away thoughts and just allowing yourself to breathe. And there's a ton of techniques out there. And we've got links to all sorts of things on our website. We've got a guided meditation you can use. Fill your boots. There's tons of it. You can use headspace.com. That's a great site that allows you to spend a lot of money learning more about this subject. And that's all great. The key is to stop and just focus on breathing. And in a previous webinar, we talked a lot about diaphragmatic breathing or rhythmic breathing, and these are the things that can help you. It is interesting, and we've seen this happen many times on resilience courses. If you just get someone to meditate or stop and think about their breathing for 1 minute, the difference in their ability to think more coherently at the end of that minute is significant. And I've just seen it too often for it to be a coincidence now. Just stopping for 1 minute. Because a lot of people say, I haven't got time to sit down and do some chanting in an office all day. Or, I'm a busy mum, I'm running about as a forwards. Yeah, but you've got a minute. You've just got a minute. Just sit in the car and just shut your eyes. And we'll keep them open if you want to. But best shut your eyes and just breathe for 1 minute. Set the alarm on your phone just for 1 minute. No more. And just do that 2 or 3 times a day. That 1 minute will just allow you to renew. We're going to have a lot more resources around meditation and mindfulness, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time here. But it is important to help our brain stop. And the other thing, the almost opposite of this, is stimulation. Is to do different things. There used to be a lot of those brain trainers that all the rage at one stage. Getting your brain to work in different ways. And that's really good because we know, for example, that the hippocampus can be stimulated by, for example, learning a new skill. We know that taxi drivers who have over the course of time developed more brain grey matter around the hippocampus because they're using their brains in a particular way. So use it or lose it, really. That's the key here, isn't it? Do different things, go different places. I used to have a technique that allowed me, wherever I went anywhere, I always went a different way and just forces the brain to work a bit harder. For me, this is one of the things I find really powerful, and some people think this is the power of music is really important. We're putting together a sort of resilience playlist of music that's designed to help you meditate and help you repair and renew. But for me, if I want to pump myself up, for example, before a presentation, I listen to really groovy music. And if I want to chill out, I don't. I listen to something different. So I use music, and I'm not necessarily talking about specific composers or bands or groups. Sometimes it's the measure and the meter of the music or the tonality of the music that allows you to get the results you want. So for those of you who enjoy this, the better. Someone once said laughter is the best medicine. That's absolutely true. If you go out, the process of laughing forces your body to work in a different way. So it forces you to breathe in a different sort of way, and it forces a part of your chest to work in a different way. So laughter actually is a sort of physical workout, and it also pushes oxygen and such like through your system in a different way, in a faster way than usual. So laughter has a physiological impact, but also has all sorts of responses on our sort of neurotransmitters and hormones. It's just great for you. And I'm not talking about that sort of, that slight smirk or that little grin. It's the full-on belly laughing thing. Years ago, I used to watch something called The Laughing Policeman. And as a kid, I used to howl with laughter. And it's funny, as you become an adult, you sort of lose that capacity to really, really, really have a right good belly laugh. And I heartily recommend it. It's a bit like going to the football, isn't it? For some people, they go to the football and yell and scream and jump up and down and shout and go mad. And for other people, it's laughter. Either works. They're both things that allow you to get big. Oh, now I'm a fan. Years ago, I never used to go on holiday. In fact, it was too macho. Holiday, no time for holiday, too busy. And then I suddenly met someone that was really into holidays, and now I am the world's biggest fan of holidays. And there is nothing like holiday to renew. And it's not just because you are doing nothing, and it's not just because you're in a different place and you're seeing new things and reading different books and such like. It's because you've made it happen. So it becomes an event. And of course, you can enjoy anything, even if it goes wrong or well. But holidays are places to be different in different places. And, I can't recommend holidays enough. Now, if you've got kids and you're doing holidays, I know they can be, if you want, you can let them be really stressful. Or you can make holidays work for you. You can have different holidays in different times, depending on the needs of different people in the group. Last but not least, learning. Just learning something new. I'm learning Spanish at the moment. And it's really tough. It's really hard. But boy, you can almost feel your brain sort of creaking into action when you're trying to do it. Then, of course, if you all go to Spain, then it all comes to life. You can't really learn in isolation, so it's always good to learn something that has a life lesson. But really, renewal is the key to help us with our resilience. Now, this is our first book, Resilience Unraveled, part of that series. We're on our third now, and you'll be able to look at our website and see these things. But I think please, engage with the subject. I think when I came into the resilience area, first of all, this became for me energy the most fascinating, because I was probably more unaware of the physiological side of how our resilience worked than others, and I really get excited about it. So there's tons more resources, tons more advice, and a whole nutritional campaign on other parts of QEDOD.com or personalresilience.com. And we have a contributor, Claire Carradine, she'll say, who co-authored this book, who has an exercise regime when you're around the office, which involves all sorts of peculiar exercises at work, which are good fun, actually. So I think we're done for today. I've seen the questions rocking and rolling as we've gone through this process and answered them as we've gone. And until the next time, I wish you good mental health. Oh, that's Frasier, isn't it? I can't say that. I hope you've got your bounce back. Until the next time, bye now.